morning, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. Welcome, welcome. My name's Ashley Poff. I'm here supporting the event today on behalf of the DeKalb County Behavioral Health Coalition. Thank you for your time, for joining us on this beautiful Saturday. Just a few notes of housekeeping. We want to give a thank you to Sam Street for hosting us today. This is actually where our Board of Commissioners meeting is held, right this way. We have the room oriented a bit different. This is also home to DeKalb County's one-stop shop, so please come and check it out if you ever have time. Our restrooms are located down the hall. You make a left and then a quick right. We do have security on site today, so please conduct yourselves respectfully and according to the county's code of conduct. Well, we have a delicious lunch today provided by Oakhurst Market. Drinks are here as well, so please grab lunch if you haven't already, because our program will be going on until 2 p.m. We do have Wi-Fi in the space, but is county supported, so if you're welcome to log in and get access. If you're having trouble, then we just recommend that you use your cellular data. And we are accepting feedback today, so your feedback is encouraged. We will have a short survey that we implement shortly. Here's a look at our schedule for the day. And we'd like to give a welcome to our DeKalb County elected officials. If you could please stand. And then if anyone would like to bring welcoming words, Commissioner Ted.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you all so much for being here. I'm Commissioner Ted Terry, Super District 6. And first off, thank you to all of our partners between DeKalb County Police Department, the Sam Street Facilities Team, DCTV, which is recording, and we'll put this up on Channel 23 and their YouTube screen. So we'll have this available for others who couldn't make it today, or if they wanted to provide additional input, they could. Thank you, of course, to Ashley and the Super District 6 team, Miranda, Nadine, Adriana, and then, of course, the Behavioral Health Coalition, which has really been led by the Claritel Behavioral Health team. Andrea's here, but there's so many partners and stakeholders who are in the room here today, so I really, really appreciate it. So I want to welcome you to today. This is in recognition of World Homelessness Day, and here in DeKalb County. And we are coming together not just to recognize the challenges of homelessness, but to reaffirm our shared commitment to compassion, dignity, and action. And action is very important because what we're embarking upon this year, this end of this year, we're about halfway through, is an unhoused plan. And I like plans that are not on the shelf somewhere, or I guess now it's like a digital, drive somewhere in the cloud, but a plan that gets put into action. So action is very important. Homelessness is not just a statistic, even though we do a lot of statistics when it comes to how we address the issue and all the different slices of people's situations. But it ultimately is a story of people, of our own neighbors, of families seeking stability and hope here in DeKalb County. And in DeKalb County, we believe that every person deserves a safe place to call home, and that through partnership, policy, and perseverance, we can make that a reality. So again, I want to thank each and every one of you, our community advocates, our service providers, faith leaders, and certainly our residents and our voters here for showing up today. Your presence reminds us that solutions begin when we all come together, and that's what this day is about. So we're not only going to reflect on what World Homelessness Day is, but we are going to renew our resolve to build a county where everyone has the opportunity to thrive, and I know that together we can ensure that that home is within reach for all. Thank you very much. And I will call up my other Super District Commissioner from Super District 7, Dr. Ladina Bolton. Let's give her a round of applause.
Good morning. It's always a pleasure to work with fellow Commissioner Terry, because we often say when you have the two of us in the room, you have all of DeKalb, because as supers, hey, Caitlin, As supers, I represent the eastern half of the county, and he represents the western. So together, we work for DeKalb County. And so I just want to say again, good morning. Today, on World Homeless Day, we honor the humanity of every individual facing housing insecurity. And DeKalb County homelessness is not by any means abstract. It touches families, veterans. My dad was a Marine, youth, elders, our LGBTQ plus community. And in District 7, we are committed to action. Just a few weeks ago, we partnered with House ATL to host the Dream Home Expo, and I believe some of you in the room were able to come out and see some of the resources that were provided. This was an initiative designed to help families identify and access those resources needed to secure and sustain, whether it's their starter home, their dream home, or simply just long-term housing stability, which is a contributor to folks becoming unhoused when they aren't able to sustain their homes. So that's something we have to be cognizant of as well. This is the kind of programming that turns hope into home ownership. And if I could just share a little bit about my own journey. So I am from DeKalb County. I was raised here. I'm raising my children here. But when I went away to college, I graduated from Savannah State University, my husband, Hampton University. And so before coming back to DeKalb County, we started our family. So we had a 1-year-old at the time, and we decided we wanted to raise our son here in DeKalb. But unfortunately, well, it would seem an unfortunate, but it was a blessing to us that at the time we didn't have anywhere to live when we moved here. So we were blessed to stay at a family member's home in a room furnished only with a mattress on the floor for many, many months. And so according to what current standards are, we were homeless. My husband, myself, my son, but we were blessed to have a sort of transition stage to help us while we were looking for work. And once we built up enough income where someone would even give us the opportunity to hear us out about giving us funding to find a home, then finally and eventually we got our starter home, which is just around the corner from here. So it's an honor for me to be the District 7 Commissioner and help contribute toward an issue that we experience, but of course that I know especially has a grand impact on DeKalb County. So let today be a reminder. Housing is not a privilege. It's a foundation for families and communities. And in District 7, we will keep building pathways to dignity, stability, and belonging. And I appreciate you guys listening. You seem really engaged hearing my story. But at this time, I would love to bring up Councilwoman Alexis Weaver to come up and say a few words as well. Give her a round of applause, please.
Hi, Alexis. Thank you. Appreciate that. Well, I'm really excited to be here. I am Councilwoman Alexis Weaver with the City of Tucker City Council, and I am really excited that DeKalb County and our wonderful commissioners and our wonderful team at the county is doing so much to be able to have us have the leadership that we need to address these regional challenges. I actually got my start working in community development in Waco, Texas, and it's a much larger place than people think. Working on our county coalition to address homelessness. And one of the things that was so powerful was to be able to bring together elected officials, community members, nonprofit service providers, people with lived experience of being unhoused, and all of those folks together working on addressing what are the gaps, what are the opportunities. And Waco was able, with the contributions, again, of all of the people in that coalition, to end chronic homelessness in McLennan County. And I am just very, very thankful. It's a local issue, it's a regional issue. These are not the kinds of things that we can solve independently. We really do need everybody to be at the table. And I'm very, very thankful for the focus on dignity. This is the solution to homelessness is housing, right? We need to get people in homes and in shelter, and then we can tackle all of the other things. And the dignity that we can offer to people who are experiencing challenges that but for the grace of God, go any of us, is really powerful. And I'm very excited to be a part of the DeKalb County community and to know so many people who are working on this. And I think it is very achievable, and I'm very excited to be able to be a partner with this group of people here. So thank you so much for having me today.
Thank you so much. We'd like to invite any other elected officials that would like to bring welcoming words. Yeah, go ahead. Happy to have you.
Thank you. I had just scripted a couple things. I'm so grateful to be here from the city of Decatur, our county seat, and bring you greetings from my 4 colleagues on the city commission who had a chance to experience the presentation we'll be giving shortly on Monday night. It was powerful and helpful. Change is afoot. Things are happening. So I appreciate being here. And I just want to say we also did our first proclamation for World Homeless Day for our city. So that's I hope you know there's a local recognition of this issue, that communities can work on it and be part of the solution. I very much appreciated Dr. Bolton's mentioning belonging. I think the city of Decatur prides itself on being a city that feels welcoming, and you don't just have to try to fit in, but you can belong, and those are different things. So we want our unhoused community members to also know they belong and live, as was mentioned, with dignity and hope for the future. So those are just a couple of messages I wanted to bring. I have a lived experience of having my father be homeless for the last 10 years of his life, from when I was 14 to 24, and some of those realizations of how close to home, close to your family and your own being and life path can be, that we're all, again, one step away, one external shock, one health crisis from having a major issue that could affect us personally and certainly someone we love. But we have neighbors and friends who live with us without shelter, and I'd like to do a lot more to support them in being well and being where they want to be. So thank you for being here, and I look forward to the presentation.
Thank you so much to all of our elected officials for being here and everyone for joining us. And with that, we'd like to get started with our Texas trip delegation. So I invite those speakers to join us at the podium, whoever's getting us started. Thank you. We'll just use this thing.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Joy Monroe, and I'm the director of the Single Parent Alliance and Resource Center. And I had the honor of being part of a 21-member delegation that went to Texas to look at innovative practices and approaches to homelessness. So the purpose of our trip was to study the best practices that they have in San Antonio and Houston. San Antonio and Houston have been making waves in the community about the way that they're reducing the numbers of unhoused individuals and families that they have in their communities. So they have created best practices. So we went to study and see what we could learn and build partnerships and perhaps identify strategies that we could bring back to DeKalb County to implement here so that we can be successful as well. We also wanted to understand how their continuum of care works, what their structure is, what their policies are, and how they are being successful, because perhaps that's also something that we can mirror here. So our anticipated outcomes was, of course, a knowledge transfer, as well as some strategic planning. We can bring this expertise back here and do some strategic planning here in DeKalb to identify ways that we can make changes. Also to do some networking while we were down there, to build some partnerships, and also to see if there were any policy recommendations that we could also implement here. So my own personal name for this group was the Dream Team. It was a completely diverse a variety of perspectives, experiences, knowledge base. There were legislators, healthcare, members of DeKalb County Public Schools, a few nonprofits. DeKalb Behavioral Health was there. We also had a representative from the city of Atlanta to represent that Atlanta-DeKalb relationship as well. Human Services, also Georgia Equality. This entire trip and putting together this dream team was the vision of Commissioner Michelle Long-Spears. And it was her vision to pull together a group of diverse stakeholders to go to Texas and identify the practices and bring them back here. This trip, of course, was supported in partnership with Claritel Behavioral Health. And if you don't know Claritel Behavioral Health, they are an amazing force. They're the behavioral services partner for DeKalb County. And a very, very, very special shout out to Andrea, who was just a wizard with logistics. We had zero problems. Everything on the trip was perfectly planned and coordinated. So Andrea, thank you for that as well. So our first stop was in San Antonio, and this is just a little bit of background information on San Antonio. They have a population of 2.12 million with a 14.7% poverty rate. They have 3,625 who are experiencing homelessness, with just over half of them reporting experiencing mental health illness. So we had a meeting with Close to Home, and that is the continuum of care, because we were truly interested in how their continuum of care operates. And one of the things that stood out for us with the continuum of care is their continuum of care is a nonprofit. And what that does is it allows the COC to leverage philanthropic dollars that they can privately raise, along with federal funds that they can publicly raise. So it extends their funding arm. So they were able to secure over $18 million in funding for that community. The COC also manages their HMIS system, which is their Homeless Management Information System. So they are the keepers of all of the data. So you have one source to go to find out what's happening with the unhoused population. So they also secure and distribute funding to all of the services, all of the providers who provide direct services to the population. So in 2025, they had over $22 million in federal funding that they were able to distribute to help support the families and individuals. So they lead the process and do all of the reporting, which kind of takes a weight away from the nonprofits who are actually doing the work, because all of that is managed and housed at the COC. And there are 60-plus organizations in that COC. And one of the things that I think we all walked away with was a sense of understanding the partnership and collaboration that it takes to go into managing a COC with 60-plus partner organizations. Spending time with them, you could tell that they spent time with each other. They all spoke the same language. They all spoke with one voice. So they were all on the same team. So they were able to share that their top 4 needs that they found were finding IDs and documents. When you're unhoused, that's keeping up with your possessions is a particular challenge. Also, shelter, of course, supporting houses and housing vouchers, as well as helping families find stable, viable employment that can support living. This is a list of all of the partners. Again, you can see the level of collaboration that's involved, and they're all able to work together. This is a picture of us at San Antonio. So a couple of things that I want to point out. In the first picture, you can see that the mayor came. And so the mayor coming to welcome our delegation just really showed how important it is for them to also share the work that they're doing so others can be successful as well. She came personally and addressed us and answered questions. The second thing that I want to highlight is that picture right there. When you come into San Antonio City Hall, they say that you never get a second shot at a first impression. So our first impression walking in, aside from the level of security, which was significant, but our first impression was they are concerned about housing. These are posters that they have up on the wall where they're talking about area median income. And instead of just talking numbers, they've turned it into people. So when they're talking about 60% AMI, they will tell you who that is. They can tell you if it's a teacher, if it's a firefighter. When they're talking 30% AMI, because that housing is a little bit more difficult, they also tell you who that is. Those are your people who are working in grocery stores. Those are your home health aides. And so what they've done is they've made it personal. So when you walk in, you're not talking about area median income and numbers and, trying to make the math work. They tie it to people. So it shows the true impact of what happens when you build housing. So they even have names. So when you build housing in the 30% AMI, you're building housing for Liza. You're building housing for Sam. You're building housing for Matthew. And they made it very personal, which was very impactful. We were all talking about that when we walked in. We also got to visit Haven for Hope, which I love the way that they phrase it on their website, which they call it a transformational campus that is focused on radical love, respect, and dignity. And that's exactly what we saw when we got there. And I do like that they say campus, because if you're walking Haven for Hope, if you didn't know where you were, you would think you were on a college campus. I immediately flash back to my college days. It felt like a college campus. They say that homelessness has a look or a feel, but it didn't. It didn't at Haven for Hope. It really, truly felt like a college campus. And they have a very comprehensive campus-based approach, and they have been around for 15 years. And since their inception, they have served over 40,000 individuals, with 13,000 of those individuals transitioning into permanent housing, or at least higher levels of residential care. It's 22 acres, and they also have 150 partner organizations that support their work. Again, partnership and collaboration. They have disciplines such as housing assistance, medical, dental, health, education, childcare. A variety of services are right there on site. Haven for Hope is broken up into two campuses. There's the North Campus and the South Campus. The North Campus is the transformational campus. This is the campus that you transfer from Haven to Hope into housing. It offers residential housing for families as well as individuals. It has 340 beds for family housing, so families can live in their dorms as well as individuals. The South Campus is low barrier shelter where it provides safe indoor sleeping for all. So they don't have barriers such as you have to agree to sign up for services or you have to commit to anything. You can be active in your addiction and still take advantage of what South Campus has to offer. You just can't be practicing your addiction on the South Campus. But you can come to the South Campus and access the services just so that you can be safe and have somewhere safe to sleep. By having the South Campus open, they have reduced criminal activity that accounted for $142 million in savings to the county. They have housed 1,260 clients, but they have served over 9,000 clients at the South Campus. One of the most powerful things about Haven for Hope is this diagram right here, because this diagram shows how it's a one-stop shop that addresses the housing crisis that they were having. It's one stop, it's built close to transportation so people can have access to go to work, but all of the services are right there on site. By having the services on site, you avoid duplication of services because you know who everyone is and you know who's doing what, but you also reduce the barrier of access to services for the clients that you're serving. Everything is on the campus. They can access it right there. These are pictures of our happy group as we were traveling and meeting with the local representatives. And that concluded our time in San Antonio.
Hi, my name is Leanne Else with Wellroot Family Services. Before we left San Antonio, we stopped at Pets Alive, which was a best-in-class, absolute national model for housing and dealing with homeless furry friends. The connection to Haven for Hope was really interesting because Haven for Hope was committed to providing a space for people's pets so that there would be no barrier for them to come to care. And Pets Alive supported Haven for Hope by providing the vaccinations and the food to make that viable for Haven for Hope. Pets Alive also saved 5,000 pets last year, has a beautiful campus, and we learned a lot. Next slide. Oh, I have the next slide. Awesome. So there's the furry friends and the beautiful campus. So our next stop was Town Twin Lake, which is a brand new development. It's a $40 million development aimed to build 240 residences for 55 and older people experiencing homeless. It's aimed at chronically homeless individuals that are prioritized through the COC. Many are veterans, many have disabilities, and many have aged out of the foster care system. They have a housing first model, so people can come while using, as long as they're not disruptive in any way to the community. It's permanent supportive housing, which is what the community is focused on. And they basically said that the outcomes for chronically homeless people really beyond the age of 50, the life expectancy is just 50. So they're aimed at ending that. And if you look at the capital stack for this, it's varied. They got some ARP funds, county and city bonds, I'm forgetting now. Private foundations. So it was a diversified funding mix, and it's a $40 million development. They, at Town Twin Village, they were concerned about integrating this into the broader community, and were worried about NIMBYism. And how they did that is they engaged the larger community and said that this campus is open to anyone 55. So neighbors, unhoused individuals across the whole community that are not living there. It's an open campus, and there's breakfast and lunch free to anyone that comes. There's medical, dental, so this campus is serving more than the residents right there. They even partnered with the bus line and the bus drivers so that they would feel incentivized to bring unhoused individuals that were 55 plus onto campus for the services. It's very special. It's a partnership model again. So the housing is really run by Town Twin Villages, and the services are delivered by many nonprofits. Here's a picture of the units. They're extraordinary. They had two kinds. So far they have 124 units. 24 of those, they tried trailers. They're not sure that model is the best because they just don't stand up. Sorry. And then they built tiny homes. So absolutely beautiful tiny homes. You can see the inside of one and the porches, and they built them in little villages. So they kind of face each other, and they really foster community among residents. Next, we took 3 SUVs to Houston, and Houston is similar in a lot of ways to San Antonio in their commitment to ending homelessness. Houston is a large city, 5 million people. The poverty rate is 15.9%, and in Houston, they report 3,300 people in their point of time count, with 35% of those reporting a mental illness. In Houston, the COC, the HUD-designated COC, is called The Way Home, and it has 100 partners that are very focused on providing permanent supportive housing paired with supportive services. They took a hard look at how to serve chronically homeless in the highest need, and decided that transitional housing was not the route for them, so they're laser focused on permanent supportive housing. They have a 501c3 called the Coalition for the Homeless of Houston and Harris County. And this 501c3 not only manages the HMIS system, but it manages the fundraising and the collaborative partners. And what was extraordinary when you heard everyone talk was how they talked about swim lanes, and that they were all serving the system. They kept saying the system because it was like they had a role in a plan, and they were all coordinated and dedicated to their overlap and efficiency and non-duplication. They were really able to bring in a lot of federal dollars. You'll see in 2023, they brought in $59 million of HUD funding. And now we have Kelly.
I'm glad to be able to pick up right here where we visited Houston City Hall, which was such a fundamental grounding experience, spending the whole morning through lunch with representatives from law enforcement, their city council, leadership from their continuum of care, The Way Home, and really sharing ideas and best practices. And my takeaways from that morning were several things, and they're very qualitative, if I can share that, but it's so fundamental. The shared language, as Joy alluded to, across all the groups and people that we spoke with, their commitment to being in the room together regularly. They said, we meet all the time. You could even see a physical chemistry. These folks work together and are in this work regularly. The constables who sat and met with us for about an hour and a half, they're elected officials in Texas. Their job is to execute on civil law and order versus so much as public safety, I guess I would say. They do both, but I wanted to emphasize the elected role and their participation in policy. But their firsthand testimony about their experience working with this issue, one gentleman came to tears. This is how committed he is to working with this community. He has friends in the community, and they wake up every day saying, how can I help people living outside in Houston, and how can I help these folks from Atlanta learn more about what we do? So it was a dynamic group. We had a city council person who came from the Houston City Council, spent a little bit of time with us. And my takeaway as an elected official was watching this work supersedes their individual maybe professional or partisan or political roles. Honestly, I saw it in the room. And so you have to be with people, I think, to believe that. And that was one of the other important takeaways from that morning. So they level set us with a couple things about their work. They want to make homelessness functionally zero. They want it to be rare, brief, and non-recurring. Those were powerful words I think have been in this space for some time, but I'd never heard them. So I can't forget them now, and I like to say that whenever I can. They work the hardest cases first, and that's a discipline. I think that's something we should take away and consider. They just said, that's how we'll do this, and then we know it gets easier, quote unquote, from there. They work the hardest cases first, and they redefine success every day. So it's a bit of a pep talk, but when you have a whole room of deeply committed professionals across these range of skill sets and expertise and walks of life, even languages, you can tell what it takes. But I was like, well, we have all that. We're just going to get home and organize it together. So that was the City Hall visit, which was very powerful. We had a few site visits, as they did in San Antonio, and we visited the Navigation Center, and that provides bridge beds for clients. It's co-ed. You'll hear this said again, low barrier. That seems to be a key to their success, and ADA accessible facility. And that provides temporary, semi-private accommodations to up to 100 individuals at a time with some overflow. They provide some transportation, and they have security, laundry, healthcare, the basic things folks need to get situated. I was impressed by its cleanliness and its commitment to, I think there's dignity in cleanliness, there's happiness in cleanliness. It was very organized. It felt like a safe place. They had plenty of food, laundry, and folks had privacy, as you can see. We visited a different style of housing called New Hope housing. I had a couple notes on that I wanted to mention. They are committed to the whole person approach. They've been doing this work with New Hope for over 3 decades. They characterize their work as housing plus services. They've helped more than 15,000 people over that time, and they're committed to helping people build better lives. You can see it's its own 501c3 organization also, relocating homeless people into permanent supportive housing. 175 fully furnished single-room occupancy studio apartments, and you can see some office space too. My takeaway was that it had wonderful light, really nice people. It had a great food pantry. It had a neat green courtyard inside. It was a very cool place to live, close to transit, and also very integrated into its own neighborhood. We heard that residents had a little bit of a challenge considering it coming online many years ago, but they worked through that, and now I'm sure they can't imagine not having it there, and they do share some of its amenities with the local neighborhood too. There's a picture of that courtyard, the pantry, that beautiful conference room. We spent a nice couple of hours there. And our last on-site visit of that day was the Harris Center for Mental Health. It's a diversion center, the largest provider in Texas. They provide behavioral health and development needs services, and we met with several of their I would say their progenitors, the folks who started this place. That was powerful information from them. They aim to divert individuals with mental health conditions away from the jail, and they can receive behavioral health treatment. I think that's where I learned from my role how important it is to know your numbers, know how much money is saved by preventing unsheltered people going to the emergency room, going to hospital stay, going to jail. We know we can do better, but we also know we can spend money better and allocate resources better through diversion centers like the Harris Center. My eyes can see at 30 feet, and these glasses can see at 3, but I need to do this. You can see some of the on-site services, which are extensive. 2,621 diversions. I think as policymakers and making the case, we have to understand here what a diversion means, not just from the human standpoint, but like I said, the economic standpoint. 18.5% of those who reported homelessness ended up with a roof over their head. They had a very low recidivism rate, was another takeaway I had. There's some respite care in there also, was a new learning for me. I didn't know that existed, and I see in my own community people who've been recently released from the hospital who are not well. They need more time to heal, whether they're going to go to housing or not. They are not well and should not be living outside with acute health issues. So respite care was something I was particularly interested in and grateful that Houston does that. Great gatherings. Was that the popcorn smell place? So you walk into a quadrant where you just are overwhelmed by that wonderful smell of popcorn that you're always hungry when you smell that. And we thought, what's going on? And we realized they had a technique. They actually have a fragrant scent in that area, which is the immediate intake center place for when folks walk in the door. And they have realized it is a feel-good feeling. Folks settle down. They want to stay longer, and they'll be calmer and go through some of these initial steps right after they walk in the door. I just found it fascinating, but their attention to detail and willingness to do whatever it takes to get folks to stay and work with them was really impressive. I think I take us all the way home with the summary. This COC question, having a strong COC outside of government that can be a 501c3, that can receive and manage HUD funding as well as charitable contributions, was, I'd say, our primary takeaway. And that's why it's first on this slide. And it allows them to have clear governance, boards, operations, consistent communication, and work that is elevated over and above individual politicians, people, and the work stays up here. In Houston, they called it the system, and everybody talked about working inside the system, being part of the system, and being plugged into the system. And the folks who are plugged into it are the coalition, and they're the providers. And the coalition is also organized and marching to the same beat. So we saw the county and city partnerships. Harris County, I know better than the San Antonio situation. Very large county, as you can imagine, with a major metropolitan area and 33 cities outside of Houston. They are organized. They're all working together. They have policy alignment, resource allocation because of this system and the coalition that's plugged in. One thing about the Houston group, the coalition, they challenged themselves as a way to get organized and say, how do we do this and work together and test ourselves. They said, we'll house 100 veterans in 100 days. That was one of their earliest stories. And they said they literally fell across the finish line to get it done, but they did. And then they knew they were bonded in this forever. And they still talk about it, and you can tell it very much validated them and their work. Public-private partnerships, you saw it throughout the presentation with particularly the build-outs, the Haven for Hope, New Hope Housing, absolutely takes public-private partnerships. That only expands the supportive service capacity beyond what government alone can do. The community engagement and site selection, we heard a fair amount about that in Houston, and I think it's a special talent and skill, but don't overlook it and take that time to get embedded in the community. And this presentation being given over and over is part of that process to me as well. It's the early upfront education and awareness building and trust building that we're all working on this issue together. Of course, you have local residents, faith-based groups, civic leaders. And I know that we find resistance to citing shelters or supportive housing, but the more we can talk about success stories, I think like San Antonio and Houston, we'll get an even greater comfort level, and that it won't go away, but we can overcome it more readily. And that other key thing of allowing neighborhood residents to feel welcome and like they can take advantage of amenities and services as well. The low barrier key, component we mentioned, crisis response beds serve as key entry points, and they connect individuals to these coordinated housing pathways. They have a menu of housing options, and I know we don't truly have that yet, but we aspire to it. And once you have that menu of housing pathways, it's not a binary interaction when, for example, law enforcement is working with an unhoused person and they only have one or two choices, and that might be the emergency room or jail. That first touch point is not like that at all in Houston. The constables approach a homeless person and he said, the first thing I say is, "Are you thirsty?" And then he goes from there and he builds a relationship. And I found that to be one of the most powerful things that we heard in Houston. Permanent supportive housing is a proven solution. I heard several times that Houston had pivoted away from transitional housing as much as possible. They weren't getting the benefit they were seeking. So this housing first, service-oriented environment is just what they do now. And the mental health and substance use disorder service integration strengthens the outcome. And I remarked many times on their low recidivism rate and this idea of redefining success, which helped them meet people where they are and continue down the path of working with each person individually. The data is very critical. They optimize their HMIS system in a way that I don't think we can do yet here, but that we should understand better how an HMIS can serve such a huge coalition of providers. The Houston Coalition is about 100 providers. I think you heard Joyce say it's more like 60 that they recognized in San Antonio, but they share the HMIS. Everyone's visible in it, so that makes for a lot more efficiency in working this at scale. They can align their funding with the priorities too, based on they can use data to make decisions, and they have more transparency when they report. They also had something called a hot ID, and I'd like to put that out there as a tool and a policy we would benefit greatly from, but they can generate documents, government recognized documents for people in Houston within hours. So they've essentially eradicated that as a barrier to getting people connected to services. Is that the last one? Okay. There were two mental health legislation pieces I'd like to mention briefly that were brought up in the Houston City Hall as well. But they are, as a Texas legislature, they actually passed two bills, and I'm happy to talk with folks on the sidelines about it. But I found that they've done some powerful work on mental health legislation to identify individuals who have a lesser form of, they're suffering crucial or acute mental health crises, but are unaware that they are suffering, and therefore we cannot help them in our environment today. But this recognition of another level of mental health crisis is going to allow folks in Texas to help get people to services. I haven't done a great job of explaining that. They have two bills they passed this spring. I looked at them and thought we should take a look here in Georgia and influence our folks at the state assembly and understand better what they're doing. And I thought if they're doing it in Texas, we can do it in Georgia. And moving through the next phase of this work, I think some of that is going to be as important as buying buildings and citing things. So this presentation has probably been given at least 6 times, and we have a range of folks who present. I got a little anxious because I hadn't done all these slides before, and it made me think there's no perfect messenger. In fact, we're all messengers. Any 21 of us could come and visit with you, go through the presentation formally or informally, but that's really the power of this delegation and what we were able to learn, and there's more to unpack. And with each subgroup that we could present to or that any of us could share this information with, I think you have takeaways and learnings that could help our entire county, and certainly every individual city has takeaways too. So I put myself out as a resource, but there's 20 other people, and we're really grateful to Commissioner Terry and Commissioner Long-Spears for being with us and taking leadership on the county side. Thanks.
Thank you. That's my second or maybe third time seeing that, and I'm over there writing notes, and I love all of the ideas that you guys got out of the Texas delegation. Let me introduce myself. My name is Carol Cantor-Dotson. I am with an organization called IntelliGy Corporation. We're 30 years in business, and we're in the business of client experience. For the last 22 years, we have worked exclusively with social service, counties, agencies, and organizations. So we are now in the world of client experience improvement for those individuals with barriers. We actually work in child welfare pretty extensively, public health. We did years and years and years in food stamp process, redesign, Medicare, Medicaid, and through all of that experience have also moved in and worked in housing and homeless programs. So thank you. My job, brought on by the Board of Commissioners, was to run a collaborative model to develop what we're calling the Unhoused Support and Services Plan. What I want to tell you, and you can do this now, we can do it at the end as well. What we're going to ask for you to do today as you're listening, we're going to present the beginnings of 11 recommendations that this collaborative model is bringing forward. We have not formalized those recommendations. We still have a couple of months on our timeline to do that, but you're going to hear the beginnings of that. And what we want you to do is weigh in on the importance, the potential impact that these recommendations you feel could have in DeKalb County. So you can scan that now, and you can scan it at the end. So we presented on Tuesday to the Board of Commissioners. We're using that same information here. We're trying to be as open and welcoming of information and input. We've actually grabbed new work group members, even midstream. We're just not shutting down the lines of information and input as this is getting some momentum. So I'm going to go over a little bit of the project objectives as a starting point. So the Board of Commissioners recognized that we as a community have done a lot of talking, maybe a lot of idea generation, but what they wanted was a plan that was developed by the people doing the work today. So IntelliGy is just a facilitator of this information. We did not come with any predisposed ideas or outcomes. We have let these ideas and recommendations surface up from the groups that came together. And that collective impact model, that collaborative model, is really what has to happen. Ideas can't come down from the top. They have to come from the ground up. So you're going to see that today. And I'm sorry, I actually have the same problem. I'm either in or out. Let's see. I don't know if I'm either one of them. What I wanted to say is at the very beginning, we decided, although our commission was develop an unhoused support and services plan, it was very clear from the very beginning that our definition of those individuals that we hope these recommendations affect are in fact those that are living in a traditional, what you would consider an unhoused state, but also those that are under roof, in shelter, those individuals and families that we know are living in our extended stay motels, those that are in temporary housing, and we also wanted to recognize the value of services and supports for those that are living on the cusp of being unhoused or housing insecure. So that's important when you think about the recommendations and what kind of surfaced up from this work. So we were given a 9-month timeline to do this project. I want to say that we are on schedule and on time so far, which is interesting in a community of very, very busy people. We've had amazing attendance. We have, I think, over 50 different individuals that have signed up to be a part of 5 different work groups, and it's really surprising since this is nobody's job and they all have other jobs, the input and the success we've had in that endeavor. We expect to have formal recommendations coming forward in draft form in November, in final draft form in December, and then presented to the Board of Commissioners and the community in January. What you're going to see today is some overlap, which is great. The Texas delegation was happening at the very start of our project, but they were not connected to each other in mission, but what you're going to see is some surfaced up ideas that organically came from these groups, that we saw some examples of in what you learned in Texas, other ideas that maybe we didn't see, but we know there are other case models in the country because there's a lot to learn in other jurisdictions. So I think you're going to see some nice overlaps and connection points. The work groups that we put together are here. What I want to say, and clarity from our mission for this plan, that this plan does not try to also help frame solutions for actual housing. We are confident the work that's happening in the county are solving for that downstream need. We need places for people to live. What we were missioned with is the support along that pathway, the basic needs, the services, and the crisis housing problem, so the tonight housing. We could not do it all, and what we are hoping and recognizing needs to happen at the end of the day, we need people to have places to live. So I just want you guys to know the framing of our objective was not, in fact, the long-term housing, but more of that support services pathway. So I'm going to go into each of these work groups, and this is a status report. So on Tuesday at the board, we had to give a status report. Where are we? What have we learned so far? And what are we framing as far as recommendations? The client experience group was you'll see on the left-hand side the objective of the work group. You see those individuals that raised their hand and said that they would get involved. And then on the right-hand side, a little bit of what we learned. We started this project with first doing some listening sessions, and some of the individuals that participated in those listening sessions are here. We're using it, not scientific, very quick as we could, bring different groups of individuals together and say, what would you do differently in DeKalb? What have you experienced on the pathways for basic needs and pathway needs? What do you wish we're doing differently in the future? We also, in each of our work groups, started our effort with a documentation of today. So on the client experience work group, what does today look like? How does someone raise their hand and get access to help? How does an individual, whether they're living in any of those unstates of being unhoused or at the risk of being unhoused, where do they get started? How do they make connection points? Do they have phone numbers to call? What kind of resource information lists do we have and do we provide? And what we found is a community of organizations trying really hard to be that front door, but not really working well together. So there is no one single, how do I get started? I need help, or I'm trying to help this individual. Where do I send them? We of course have coordinated entry and the county phone number for coordinated entry. They get an influx of phone calls that are not coordinated entry questions. They're individuals that have already gone through that process, or they have just questions that are not related to that. There's a desire to have a place to start for information and access to the right next steps. We have 16, 17 different resource guides in the community. They're all giving various levels of right information, and they're all giving wrong information, and there's no update process. And we uncovered agencies and departments and nonprofits that are there's someone out there creating all of these resource guides, and again, they're all various levels of not correct. So we have a desire for that. Can we learn something from that process? We know that, and these are just some of the findings, that faith-based groups do things that they consider outreach, which is amazing: water, food, basic needs outreach. So we have a myth and a misunderstanding of what actual street outreach is, what case management is, and what we need in the community. We also, as a committee, decided to do really some secret shopping. So when we say we give these phone numbers and we give these access points, what actually happens to that individual that's trying to get this help? And I say some of this background without trying to get anybody in trouble. It's not an intentional outcome of the fact that we are overburdened with need, and we have agencies that are working very hard. Admin staffing is very difficult to come by. But of the 31 organizations that promote a phone number on these 16 plus resource guides, we really only had 12 answer their phone live. So the minute we give an individual that's in crisis that phone number, recognizes a community, those agencies aren't answering their phone. So it's a dead end immediately. The CE phone line, as we all know, is overwhelmed with calls and need, and their staff is doing the best they can, but they're not a information call center. They're coordinated entry experts. So we expect more from that organization than we can give to the community. We have published crisis lines, so sometimes it's just a misnomer, but during the middle of the day, and again, this was I know any of you academics out there, like, how extensive was the study? This was a short, committee-based research project, but of the calls that we made during the business hours to what we published as crisis lines, we did not get any answers. So again, let's set the stage for where they want to go to solve for some of this, and recognizing the overburdened parts of the community. So at each of the committee levels, you're going to see at a very high level the recommendations that are surfacing up from these groups. You're going to ask them questions at the end, I'm assuming, that says, hey, why didn't they come up with this? Why didn't they come up with that? So one of the missions we had was actionable recommendations. Can we bring something forward that we could hope to see something accomplished in 18 months to 2 years? So they want to dream big, and you'll see a few big dreams, but mostly they were trying to surface up recommendations that we could actually see come to life. One of the findings that we had at the beginning of this process were, I've been a part of this before, I've been in these meetings, I've been to these town halls, I've never actually seen anything happen. So we are trying to change that, and I'm trying to, gaining the trust of the individuals that participated in this effort. So at the Client Experience Work Group, they're working on 4 key recommendations. They want to explore developing a DeKalb Housing and Services Access Line. We'll call it something interesting. But this is not just phone numbers, it's the beginning of support. It's walking a few of those steps with the individual trying to get help. It is extended hours. We as organizations, we just have so much resources, and we have very limited extended hours in everything that we do in the community. So they're looking for a warm handoff, walking those first steps of pathway type of an access point. Along with that, they want to invest in a DeKalb information access resource effort that is one place, and so all of you all that are creating resource guides and pamphlets and PowerPoints, let's just all work together to do it the right way, and stop everybody else doing it, and know that it's updated and it's the best information possible. Make sure 211 has that information. Make sure 311 has that information. So let's just do it smarter, not harder. They want to make a recommendation to expand coordinated entry assessment options, one at the COC and the phone coordinated entry, but also doing what a lot of other jurisdictions do, which is coordinated entry could be completed, which is a mandated HUD assessment for those that don't know, could be completed by case managers or individuals that are serving people in their facilities or at their organizations. So expanding that, which today is only done through one access point, and leveraging what's already great that's happening in the coordinated entry group. And then lastly, they're going to put a proposal, and this is a big cost, obviously, out for expanded and organized case management and street outreach. And I know there's actually other conversations about this already, which is amazing. Their recommendation will come with, from the boots on the street, what does this really mean? How would we want it put in place? Must they work together? What kind of sharing and kind of organizing and facilitating a process where case management outreach work together? They're in the right parts of the community. They're not overlapping and running into each other in kind of concentrated parts of the county. So those are the 4 recommendations that are surfacing up from the Client Experience Work Group. There's 11 total. The Client Experience Work Group took on the most, which is these 4. So the next work group was support services. Their job was to look at what we do in the community offer, what we don't, what those gaps in services are, where does someone go get support services, and that is in the basic needs, food, hygiene, that kind of basic needs, and then there's the pathway needs, which is document readiness and pathway steps to becoming more stably housed. So they recognize that, first off, in the community, on all of those resource guides and everything that we say we offer, only 41% of the providers are actually DeKalb County providers. And in the way you guys are situated as a geographical area, that might be okay. Leveraging Atlanta-based or Gwinnett County-based providers isn't necessarily a bad model, but from the client experience perspective, we recognize that we send these individuals on a wild goose chase to try to get some of their basic needs and pathway needs completed. We have a lot of our providers are only open a couple of days a week, so it's just hard time of day and day of the week to get services. You have to be kind of a pro at knowing where to go and what days to go there to get that need. And only 19% of the DeKalb County resources that are available are those very critical basic needs. So we don't do enough basic needs in DeKalb County. We have some amazing examples of it that we could leverage and do everywhere else, but we don't do enough to serve all of the individuals in the county. So they actually created, and they'll have this a part of their plan, they created a model where they tried to be an individual that asked for help and got this information and tried to physically go get access to those services and recognize the burden that we put on these individuals that are actually in crisis. They'll include that. And then obviously from that came the need and recognition that transportation is one of the biggest problems we have in helping these individuals and how anybody gets access to service. So they as an organization are coming forward with one really big recommendation, which is creating service hub for basic needs especially, but also adding pathway and case management needs and service hub. So meet people in the 3 different areas of the county with that collective service providing solutions. And we saw some of that in Texas, right? So although they did their basic needs and service and pathway needs also in campuses, maybe where there was shelter, it would be the same kind of thing. This wouldn't be restricted to one demographic, one level of unhoused, but this would be a warm, inviting place where unhoused, as well as those that are seeking more stable housing or those who are on the cusp of housing, could come and know that the individuals that they need to talk to are available to them. Do that in collaboration with all of the great nonprofits that are doing this work. So this is not recreating the wheel, but bringing the wheel into a more organized and meaningfully placed solution. They recognize that another recommendation that has to come out of that is transportation options, especially for those rural parts of the community. So they're doing they're going to surface a recommendation that's either a transportation and or mobile service delivery, which luckily we have some great examples of. So they want to formalize that and then make sure that we're touching all of the parts of the county, even though right now a lot of our services are isolated or concentrated in certain cities. The Housing Services Group is that group that it was missioned with what should we be doing or prioritizing for crisis housing. So that's the tonight housing. And of course, we need in DeKalb County crisis housing in all different flavors and types. We listed, what we really found is what we have, which wasn't a big finding. We have some shelter beds that were funded through HUD, and this is how they're organized and funded. What they quickly started with was we want everything, and then we said, well, okay, 18 months, 2 months, what do we really need to ask for? What's the big ask? They voted and came to a prioritization of low barrier, non-congregate shelter for families. So the one thing we don't have in DeKalb County is any crisis situation for families. And low barrier, again, you guys are learning about that if you don't already know, that you heard that resoundingly from the Texas delegation, which means tonight I do not have to go through any kind of assessment to get there. It's a tonight type solution. And then non-congregate means private, and anybody that's not working in the system knows there's a lot of individuals that won't come into congregate shelter, but especially families. So they're putting together a proposal and a cost estimate for what that potentially could look like in DeKalb County. They said that, though, with 2 caveats. one, we don't want any new shelters in DeKalb County. That's not true. We want them no matter what. We want what we can get, but we want that with 2 different commitments from the Board of Commissioners. So they're also putting together a recommendation for a shelter oversight and advisory group. What they, and again, I say the they, it's a collective, these are nonprofits, these are some agency members. Collectively, there's not enough information, there's not enough collaboration. They want to put together an advisory and oversight process that has the lived experience voice in it. They want open information and access to prioritization and how we make those decisions and vacancy rates, and just want to make sure that there's a collaboration and coalition around any monies spent from DeKalb County and shelter. So that was caveat number 1. Number 2 is don't let the Board of Commissioners, don't let the government agency off the hook. This isn't enough. 1 shelter for families isn't enough. So can we also get a commitment for a development and sustainability plan? And they're going to draft what they hope that development and sustainability plan includes. So those 3 recommendations will come forward from the Housing Services Group. The 2 next groups were really supportive conversation. So from the big ideas, what do we need from a technology measurement and what do we need from funding? So there's a technology measurement work group and a funding work group. So what we did in technology and measurement is we just understood and we wanted to sort of baseline. What do we have out there in technology today? And for those of you that work in this, you'll hear a lot of, oh, this is happening, or there's this great new tool that someone's using, and there's just a lot of unknown, therefore misinformation, therefore just sort of baselining what is actually happening in technology. We did a technology survey to the nonprofits as well and asked, do you have a system of communication and client management that you have to use because you have a governing body at your national level? Do you use HMIS and Client Track today because you're a HUD-funded, you have HUD-funded programs? Do you have your own internal tools? So we did a survey. It wasn't a lot of unknown information there. Everybody that's HUD-funded has to use Client Track, easy. We had several major organizations that do have to use their governing bodies, their national organizations, customer management tools. And then we asked for some demos. So the COC came and did the demo of Client Track and HMIS. And actually that was sort of eye-opening for even individuals that have worked in this system for a while. It's a tool that's already in use in the county. And you heard, of course, it's mandatory if you take any kind of federal funding, but it could be more than it is today. We had a demo from Georgia Unified. They have a GHAN, is a customer relationship database that they're trying to work with our hospital systems and our behavioral health systems. We actually had a great demo from a tool that Frontline is working on with City of Refuge, or has in City of Refuge, but it isn't a customer management tool. It was just really interesting. We brought them in just to see what that was about. And what you'll see next is the first recommendations that's coming out of this technology group. But before I get there, they also are in charge of measurement. So as a part of this plan, when they see the recommendations that are being formed, they will help influence. Every recommendation will come forward with what kind of outcome measures should we expect from implementing this, what are our baseline data points. So the plan itself will have data and outcome measures as a part of it. So the initial recommendation that's coming out of this technology group is the development of business process and technical requirements for a customer relationship tool that everybody serving individuals in DeKalb County has access to and uses to share information. And the reason we're wording the recommendation is we're writing business process and technical requirements is because we want to hear everybody's ideas of what this should look like. These are nonprofits that would be the users of this. We have COC members on here. We have a lot of voices. So we're trying to say, dream, what do you think a tool needs to do so that we can all share information about individuals we're serving? They're not all literally unhoused or chronically homeless. So it has to be accessible to the client that we want to serve. We want to be able to have real-time information about shelter bed capacity. We want to have the history of where individuals had basic needs services and pathway services so that we all have a big and a full picture of the individuals we're serving. So they're going to write those requirements. The next step from that requirement that we would hope someone would take is matching that up against either our existing tool and client tracker HMIS, or if it doesn't or does portions of it, is there another tool out there that solves some of those other problems? So we're trying to keep it very I'm a process person, not a technology person. I always say technology serves the process, not the other way around. So we're trying to listen to the process and the experience that we want and then find or match with a technology that does that for us. So that'll be their major recommendation. Again, this group will also inform all of the other recommendations with outcome measures. And then lastly is the funding work group. So, of course, at the end of the day, not all, but some of these recommendations will cost money. What they have spent the beginning part of this effort on is just getting a better understanding of what money we even spend in the community. And that's a really hard answer, and we haven't even nailed it. And look at all the people that we have in the room trying to come up with this. So there is no solid understanding of the money and the investment in serving the unhoused in DeKalb County. We know what the COC gets from HUD, and that's where they get all of their money is federal money. We know what some of the other major contributors to this in this system get from funding if they're willing to share it. We do not know overall how much money is actually even being spent in the community. So that's probably something that we would want to know as a community. The other finding that I think is really important to walk away with is when we think about that definition that we're working from, we don't even know how many people are in need in the community. So, and even in the Texas delegation, what they were able to publish is their point-in-time count, which is that on that count night, those individuals living literally homeless. So from our definition, we don't mean just those individuals. We mean them. We don't mean just them. So as a community, we don't even know how big the bread box needs to be because we don't know the individuals in crisis that we're looking to serve. A couple of cool things that are underway. So there's a count of the unhoused or the precariously housed families living in extended stay that's happening right now through some effort of some individuals in the room. So that'll be one eye-opening level of count and information that we don't have our access to today. And then we really have to tackle either some modeling. There's other communities out there that have done a little better doing some counts, so we're doing some comparative models based on population and poverty rate, and and again, just to come up with enough information so you all walk away recognizing the individuals we're looking to serve is not just those that we captured in the point-in-time count. So it came up in the funding, it came up everywhere. Every work group had a worry about that. We threw it at the funding work group, and we're hoping to continue to work on solving at least a better level of information, maybe not perfect. The big recommendation that's coming out of the funding work group that mirrors a little bit of what you guys heard from the takeaways from the Texas delegation, not exactly though. What they are recommending and building a plan for is a DeKalb County 501c3 funding collaboration. So to recognize the benefit that you all were bringing forward to be able to attract and organize dollars that are not just federally funded dollars. So this is going to be probably the biggest thing that this group does is finding examples within the county. It's pretty easy to figure out how to do it, getting some momentum behind what it would look like, what does governance of that look like, what is oversight, and how would you pull a board of directors together. So they're going to frame that and bring that back to the board as one of the major recommendations. They also are tackling, so then what? So they're tackling how would we go off and now attract monies that we have not been able to attract through just our nonprofits working individually, all of that with the hope of not overstepping or being in any kind of competition with our organizations that are already funded. So we want to go after money that doesn't come to the community right now, like major corporation foundations, maybe major family foundations. You're not going to ever get that money if you don't have a landing place for that money to come to that is really well organized and managed. So that's their biggest recommendation that they're walking away with. So communication along the way. We've had the opportunity to speak to the Board of Commissioners a couple of times. We're here today. One of the big ahas was there was, I take what I get, and people are saying, hey, have you spoken, did you know that Decatur just hired a homeless services individual? Got on the phone right away. The minute I hear about a number, we're trying to do some grassroots outreach, and we put a message out to all of the cities and the municipalities and said, could you give us 1 or 2 or 3 people that you have missioned in your municipality as that housing expert? And we're pulling together a conversation where we will bring these same ideas to them and match up. Hey, are you doing this? Do you have something that we missed? I think we are finding that there's a lot of individuals out there trying to come up with these same ideas. So ideally, as an outsider looking in, I hope that you all listen to the ideas and the recommendations that are surfacing up from these individuals, because they're the ones doing the work every single day. So we're willing to add anything to this list of communication as we get closer to developing these recommendations. Ultimately, we have the responsibility to bring this back to the board in January. I did want you to know that in our work groups, and as we set them up and we do some reminders along the way, that we are meant to be doing actionable. So I already talked about that. So unfortunately, I'm having to damper dreaming a little bit. Hey, that's a big dream. I love it. But in the meantime, what can we do that we can actually ask for and see a result of? So we're trying to, I have echoing, and Donna, you were probably one of them, sitting in the room saying, I've been in these meetings 10 times. See, I want action. So I have the little people on my shoulder saying, let's just trying to create something that we can actually see a result coming from. Center on the lived experience, promoting self-sufficiency, of course. We're trying to make sure that we're kind of breaking down the fiefdoms. We're looking for solutions, not ownership, not credit, and that's what this collaborative model was meant to do. And then lastly, this is just, the plan will be the plan of what today looks like, what these recommendations are for tomorrow, how would we measure success, how much is it going to cost. Pretty basic and obvious. And then this is my information and my the consultant that's also working with me on this project. And this is available afterwards as well. You all can have this presentation for any needs that you need. We're going to be a part of the panel, and then I'm going to go, Ashley, can I go back up to the survey link? Oh, that's just a little bit about Intelligy. Sorry. There it is. Oop. So real quick, back up to the QR code, yeah. So I went fast. There's 11 recommendations. If you even resonate with any of the information, if you were able to absorb it, if you want to wait until you get a copy of the presentation and do a survey. But at this point, we're ready to sort of gauge. If you knew that we were making 11 recommendations and you hope 3, 4, or 5 of them hit, where would you prioritize those recommendations? And we're going to keep on asking for this input along the process. Great. So we'll be a part of the panel. We have work group members that are a part of the panel for questions. So I think we're going to hold questions on the plan to this environment, and hopefully I'm not the one who has to answer them. Great. Thank you, everybody. If the panel members, you know who you are, can come up.
Good afternoon. I am Andrea Daniels. I am the Director of Communications for Claritel Behavioral Health, and I will be moderating this panel today. So the first segment we're going to take questions from you. And then the second part of the segment, we have some pre-submitted questions that the panel will discuss as well. So if you have a question, please raise your hand, and someone will bring a mic to you. And then we will get started. But first, I would like the panelists to introduce themselves.
Hello again, Commissioner Ted Terry, Super District 6.
Director for A Home for Everyone in DeKalb.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. I'm the wild card here on the panel, and I'm Dr. Alan Ferguson, Chief Housing Officer for DeKalb County. Glad to be here. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Lisa Regan, Senior Director of Programs and Services for St. Vincent de Paul, Georgia.
Carol Dotson, Intelligy Corporation. 3 of the individuals up here are also work group members, so they will be able to answer questions from our effort as well.
All right, thank you so much for being up here. Do we have any questions? Please raise your hand, and someone will bring a mic to you. Any questions? Okay, well, while you're thinking of... Okay. Someone is bringing you a microphone so we can hear you.
Was one detail I wanted to follow up on in one of your slides, a funding pathway, something about Legacy Decatur. Could you explain that?
Oh, yeah, and I will, because I don't think anybody from funding is here. We, in all of this work, we're looking for a model. What can we model this from? So that was just an example, what they will go out and look for. And so someone just brought up Legacy Decatur as a model for, and I don't know if it is or not. So that's what, yeah. Okay, maybe not. But that was the intent, yeah.
We have a question up front and in the back here.
Hello, hi everybody. How y'all doing? I'm listening to everything that you guys are saying, and it is phenomenal plans. I don't know if I didn't hear this part, but I want to know: are you guys planning to implement the campus, or are you guys just trying to implement the systems? Because that's what I'm trying to figure out exactly what is the direction that you guys are going in. Because I'm hearing, I love the campus, but I love the systems as well. So what is Decatur going to do? Which one, or is it both?
Good question.
I'll take that, thank you. So this plan is a continuum. I think the Texas delegation presented a wonderful view of what we aspire to. We know that we can't do everything all at once. The Unhoused Support and Services Plan is really meant to address the immediate needs of people who are unhoused. And we can look at the housing situation in the view of a bathtub, right, where you've got the spigot running faster and faster, putting water in the tub. Because of a lot of factors, we're trying to mitigate problems, drain people from the unhoused situation into stable environment. But when there's more people coming into the tub than we can properly address, the water spills over, and those are the people that are unhoused. So our first point of business is to make sure that there's not people on the street, but this is part of a much bigger plan that will be addressing in the affordable housing plan and other pieces as we continue on. Does that make sense, Carol?
Yeah, on behalf of the plan, this group did not tackle a large-scale solution. They were trying to tackle more tangible, small-scale solutions with the hope that other organizations are, in fact, tackling a large-scale solution like that. Right.
And if I can chime in for just a moment on this issue, I look at the challenge as really kind of threefold: systems and infrastructure, delivery of services, but also creating those places and spaces, where people can go. And I don't think that, quite frankly, it benefits us to try to put one pillar in place versus another. At any point in time, we've got to work in concert, together. And so when we talk about, this opportunity, if you will, to look at, other models where they've had this campus type of environment. I think those are, really worthy and strong examples of things, that, we should explore, as a county. But at the same time, while we're thinking of, how do we, create this place and space, concurrently, there needs to be effort around, the systems infrastructure, as well as making sure we have a coordinated effort, around services. So I don't look at them as like, standalone activities. I look at them as activities that are all working in concert together.
Okay. Good afternoon. First, I'd like to say that I really like the way that you phrased, instead of transitional housing, you said precariously housed, because there are people who are living with relatives. That's not sustained living, but that's not transitional housing either, so I really like that terminology. But my question is, when you were talking about identifying active resources, because a lot of us have those, the resource books or whatever, and a lot of them aren't active. Instead of doing something that's separate, why not combine what you're doing with United Way? Because a lot of people know about 211, and I'm sure they try to be as active as possible in the resources that they identify, and expand on what they're doing instead of doing something separate. For example, you could tie in the lines instead of having United Way do all of the information resource support. Pull in the other groups that are doing this, and then on Monday this group will do it, but it's all under that same heading of 211, so that just incorporate everybody.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Greg, answer about the resource guides, because you've tackled that recently.
Yeah, I want to, first of all, to everyone in the room, I want to say, let me turn my mic on. First of all, thank you all for being here, because this is really a pandemic. This is not a issue with that we can just brush to the side. No one frames it as a pandemic, but I frame it as a pandemic. But I would just say, from a resource information, from a home for everyone, like you said, trying not to recreate what's already out there, but we try to do a pretty good job of trying to make sure people know and try to make sure things are up to date. But I think when we think about the United Way piece, and for me, I'm kind of maybe the little devil's advocate in the room, is to how do people that are really living on the street, don't have a phone, what are those barriers that they really deal with? How do we make it easy for people? So I think going with the 211 and just talking to some, and I would just tell you today, I have a couple of unhoused. These are my street agents, just to let you all know. These are Prince's and tell you these are street agents. These are people who are unhoused, just to show you how people are unhoused have skills. And I call these people have resources. They know more resources than I know. And I would tell people how we got to use people that are living, that's lived the experience, can really help us. But I do agree with how we need to centralize it. And I would just say, for me, one of my pieces is the 211 United Way. And people say, okay, I've called and had no success on that. But I told them, well, who actually talks to unhoused people besides some of us in this room? We may see people on the street and we ride by. And that's why I should have brought this book, When We Walk By. A lot of times we walk by. We don't say anything. We scared. We don't know how to approach people. But you understand people are human beings. They have wonderful stories. They just need a little support. And I would just say with these resources, and this is a little tool that we created with Georgia Tech students called Unhoused Communications. It's a web-based app. It's called unhousedcommunications.com. It's got pretty much everything on it. It's got, where's Christina? It's got her shower schedule on it. They get weather for the day on it. They get food resources. We talk about the chill in the park. So just trying to make it easy for people living on the street. One day I got a phone. One day I don't have a phone. I can't keep up with passwords. I have nowhere to store my items. These are things we need to think about. How do we can have all the resource sheets, and we've seen where that's landed us in this country. There's a lot of resource sheets in America.
I do want to address, though, so part of the recommendation will be a collaboration with 211, because 211 is taking our individual constituents' phone calls. So I have worked with the United Way 211 of Georgia, and they try really hard to keep the information update. They have really beautiful processes to try to keep information update. People just don't respond. So if we can create a system that is DeKalb focused, where we know this is going to be right, great. We'll share that. And so when 211 takes those same phone calls, it is the same information. So that's the resource guide component of it. The phone call component of it, again, 211's an awesome organization. They are not missioned to walk steps with individuals asking for help. Their mission to be very quick and accurate in providing information, and let me listen and let me give you the contact points. But you saw a lot of our contact points can't answer their phones. So we want, in the phone and answering end of it, we want someone, an organization, whether it's volunteers or it's probably going to be a hybrid, a little bit of volunteer, a little bit of staff, but we want them to be able to walk more steps with that individual asking for help, be more problem solving than our 211 partner or even 311 is allowed or able to do. So it'll be a collaboration with, we will not do yet another thing. It'll be all part of a big ecosystem in the recommendation.
I really appreciate both presentations. Very, very excited to see both like the collective impact approach, which I think is probably something to highlight more, because I know I've been talking to Donna for like years about coalitions and how important they are to have functional coalitions, because that is the only way that systems change happens, right? And so I'm sort of curious from the perspective of the delegation. So there are these great new projects, but those don't happen overnight. And so kind of thinking through, like, part of what I hear is this shorter term plan, which is very important and impactful and actionable, is this potential opportunity to be a catalyst for having more organizations and more people in the community and municipalities and the county officials and everyone working together in a short term, hopefully to have some ability to start casting visions for these longer term things. So 2 questions. One is from the delegation perspective, as you all were meeting with these different cities and communities and organizations, did they talk about sort of 10 years ago, 15 years, however long ago things started, the barriers that were there and how they overcame them, the how they worked through competitiveness versus, again, how did they get to the coalition aspect? Because I think sometimes it can be daunting, kind of to your question, to be like, how are we ever going to get to this amazing vision and activate it when we all are in a space where we know the challenges that are here? And then how are you thinking about those sorts of things as you're putting together this plan? Again, City of Tucker didn't know about some of these things, but have been like one of the big people wanting to work on this issue in our community because of different personalities and the politics of local governance, not always knowing and not always being included. And so I guess that's my specific second question is, how can more of us who do want to be involved get involved and make sure that we can be the advocates that this plan needs? And how are you all thinking about that? So it's kind of a 2-part question.
I can answer the first question that you had, what stood out for me. So, of course, they did have those issues 10, 15 years ago. But what they decided to do was bring all of those organizations together, all of the cities together, and they decided to leave all of the titles, all of the different departments at the door. They came in with a mission, and that mission was finding solutions for the unhoused. So that was the first thing. The second thing they did was once they had a plan, they brought decision makers to the table. Someone who could make a decision on that plan right there, instead of having, maybe some representatives on the committees. They had the CEOs of the hospitals, the police chief, so people who could make decisions, and that was an important part to get the plan moving. And those are the things that I learned. So again, and then the last thing, collaboration, bringing in all of the nonprofits. As you could see from Texas and Houston, they had over 150 organizations come together, meet often, and they were all on the same page. And that's what I saw from them.
Yes, and I'll just add, I think that was exactly the situation where it did take many years for San Antonio, Houston to develop those models. They do have that nonprofit kind of umbrella convening all the partners, which I think helped in a way to say, if you're going to go out on your own, it's not going to work. And so you might not get the funding sort of distributed. So it seemed like there was kind of a hook there that said you have to be part of the coalition if you want to receive X federal dollars or take advantage of these resources. The back to the campus idea, the key thing to think about in the campus idea is where do you put it and how do you build it and how do you pay for building it. In San Antonio, that worked out great for them. It was like city-owned land. It's got a railroad running through it, which they've said not an ideal situation for individuals experiencing homelessness or have mental health issues, because they literally have to have people watch the gates, right? Because they don't want anyone crossing and hurting themselves, either unintentionally or intentionally. They also had the CEO of Valero Oil, an oil executive, basically give millions of dollars to help build this. And that kind of goes back to maybe one of the top recommendations that I think we're hearing is if we had a 501c3, if we had an umbrella organization that not only could receive the federal funds, but also work with the philanthropic community. And a great example is the Atlanta Rising campaign. I mean, they're trying to raise $200 million from Atlanta philanthropic organizations. There's no reason that groups wanting to help homelessness in Atlanta can't and shouldn't help our efforts in DeKalb, because as we've noticed in the numbers is we send folks to downtown Atlanta, folks from Atlanta come to DeKalb. I mean, it's not like there's a wall between Atlanta and DeKalb. 6% of Atlanta is in DeKalb. So we're all part of the same ecosystem. And, that I will say the San Antonio and Houston, a little bit different in the sense that it's one giant city and one kind of big county. So it's a little bit more, there's just city, county. And in Atlanta, we have 5 major metro counties. We have the city of Atlanta. We have 93 municipalities in those counties. So you could see where we could get very layered and kind of in our own, we'll take care of our people, you take care of your people, but the individuals that we're serving are going across those lines.
Then I would just add, one of the key pieces for me was hearing all the decision makers come together and the leaders was park your ego at the door. Park your ego at the door, let's take care of people. So many times politics get in it, people are suffering. We talk about, I think your question, think about we got cold weather coming up. All of a sudden, if you're out here on a cold night in DeKalb County, you're trying to figure out how to move these individuals. Some people not going because I got animals. So at that point, we're in a crisis situation. We're trying to move. We don't have time to figure out Ted getting credit or Alan getting credit. We got to take care of people. So that's one piece I heard. And I would just say the commitment to this work we heard with all the groups is you got to be at the meeting. If you can't be at the meeting, send Alan. If I can't be at the meeting, I'm sending Princess. But your organization's got to show up, and you got to show up correctly. You can't come in there showing up, I'm a half do it, or I'm mad at Andrea, I'm mad at Carolyn. You got to park your ego at the door if you're going to really make this work and move this work forward.
Oh, hello, my name is Deborah Crawford, and my daughter and I were with Flowing with Blessings. And much of what was said is so true, but I was looking at this plan, and it looks like a future, but I think the future is right now. Because in DeKalb County, we were very shocked to realize that there was never a real shelter, particularly for families. So my question really is, now that we have the plan, and this is really quite powerful, I'm taking in quite a bit, but we see the plan. In reality, how soon can that come to fruition in terms of getting people really, particularly families, moving from where they are into housing? Because when you come into DeKalb County, everything's going up. Everything's supposed to be affordable, but is it really affordable for the people who are really living on the street? The other question is the count. This might be a time that we consider doing the, what do you call that, points? point in time. This might work over here. Point in time, because they do it in, of course, Fulton County and Atlanta, but we don't necessarily know that that is the correct process. But that is definitely a consideration that we need to look to as the weather's going to change, because people will be out and they will be available. She has stayed.
I'll back up her question. I was going to ask about the point in time count. I'm correct when you said they've never done it in in DeKalb County or
no. You all have a point in time count in January, but
I thought so.
It is just by definition it is a period in January, and if you can answer, it is just the literal unhoused.
Just
so when I say what we recognize is we want to serve a broader audience, a broader definition, and that's the number that we do not have access to.
Okay, and then my second question was about. I guess backing up, because the people that we serve need the immediate care. They don't have time for me to be at 6 and 7 meetings advocating for them because they're calling me right now saying, I need a shower, I'm sleeping in my car, or I need laundry services, things that we don't necessarily think. I think everybody goes straight to housing, but what I've learned is so many things in between housing, like the life skills and like the mental health things. So yes, getting into permanent, and I do love that they said they're cutting out the transitional homes, because I've seen that so many times. They get transitional homes for a year and then they're right back with me, or they get the transitional homes and they have nowhere to do their laundry, or they have nowhere to go to the doctor. So it's just so many things. I think that people that, like you said, are not boots on the ground, they don't really understand those things, and then politics do get involved. So it's kind of like a 3-point question. How do you keep that out? I did hear what you said, Mr. Gregg, about how the egos have to, and as we know, it starts like that in the beginning, but once money comes in and people's opinion comes in, how do you continue to stay with the mission and the main focus of that? And grab the long-term plan, as you said, the 3-step, getting them into that, but taking care of those immediate needs. And 211 is just, because a lot of times I call the places ahead of time because you don't want to send somebody somewhere and then they're like, hey, what was that, Christina? So I've done the 211 and it is a headache for me, and I have a college degree. And so, it's how do you make sure that those things are taken care of before you get to the long term? Sorry, my question.
Well, someone asked me, I would say this: one of the most important things that I think we didn't talk about in San Antonio was street outreach. Yeah. You have to have people on the street. One, first of all, just not taking credit, but during the pandemic, everybody went home in Decatur. I went back to Andrew, like, Andrew, we cut all the water fountains off in Decatur. Called Andrea, and I was at home and realized what happened to all the people on the street during the pandemic. Who was responsible for them? I never went back home. Called Commissioner Walsh and Andrew, we got one water fountain turned on so people could have water, could get a shower, just basic needs. Street outreach is going to be crucial to us trying to be, and we saw it in the presentation. We talk about, one, I know where Jane Doe is in the woods. I know all the people you heard Sue extended stay. You got people like Princess, make a phone call. Princess can pull 50 people together that are unhoused in a matter of 5 minutes. You got to have people like that in order to deal with short-term solutions, because short-term solutions are real. I got a call yesterday. People sleeping in First Baptist Church, where my office is, on the top deck. Every stairwell is full of people. And right now, we got people mental illness. So at the pastor's we want to have an option. And y'all may know Will in the back with Frontline. We want to give people options. Will, can you come pick them up? But Will can't be the only place in this county that we send people for short term. We need clarity. We need hospitals at the same time. Hospitals was dropping off at Will. We had people that needed severe care, no conversation. And I would send them back. I put them back on the ambulance and say, take them back, tell the social worker to call us. We never heard from the social worker. So I'm just telling you, these are some real short-term, I feel exactly what you said. For us, if y'all have not seen the showers, you need to take a trip to Grady. You know how crucial Grady is in this country. They run the showers, 50, 60 people, Tuesdays and Thursdays, never had an incident. Think about the buffer where people think about homeless people. People in DeKalb County need showers. Tucker United Methodist can't be the only place on a Sunday for people to get a shower. We need you in this county.
Yeah, and I'll just add an anecdote to what you were getting at and what Greg was saying is that the street outreach is really important. And one of the things we actually heard in San Antonio, Houston is, through their system and the sort of the evolution of that program, they were finding individuals who had been on the street for decades. And they said, we went out and met with them for years and years and years, and then one day they said, I'm ready to kind of accept that housing. But in the meantime, they're on the street. And there is a cost, and it shows up in the healthcare system. As many of y'all know, if you're a Fulton and DeKalb taxpayer, you are paying for grading. And 2 years ago, we raised the hospital tax. Not a Medicaid expansion state, so Grady is taking on a lot of responsibility that we're paying for in our own property taxes. The jail, the sheriff's budget in general, and I'll just generalize here because there's a lot of details to that, it basically has doubled in the last 5 years. And it's not like the jail's like 30% full. But there's operational and societal costs as well as budgetary costs that go along with that, and we do get emails from neighbors that say there's someone living on the side of the road. Why can't you take care of them? Why get them out of my sight? It's kind of the general notion, right? And we say, well, we're going to go visit them, and a week later they're still there. Why haven't you done anything about it? And as of now, and our intention really is we don't want to criminalize homelessness, but we know that there are layers of escalation that happen. But if we can have a very strong street outreach team, have programs like that y'all do, and I know we've reached out to you to say, give us a proposal how we can provide those services, those triage services for those individuals. That is just a way to provide dignity and support for people just to survive. But hopefully it's also a way that we get them to that mindset of actually we're here to help. And it might take years, and that's okay. That's just, it's not, I don't know if we're ever going to 100% solve homelessness, but something to Commissioner Walsh, we wanted to, what did you say it was? It was brief, rare, brief, and non-recurring. And if you keep those three things in mind, that just helps us always recognize there's more people to help, but let's help as many as we can, and in as many ways as possible.
Good afternoon. My name is Bam. I'm from Atlanta, born and raised. It's an honor to be here today. I've learned so much just being here these last couple of hours. I'm an organizer in Atlanta. I work a lot with police and alternative diversion with Pat, and I'm not sure a lot of y'all are familiar. I work a lot with them. I also have a lot of lived experience. I have the last 5 years I've been unhoused in my own city. So it's been up until March this year. I have my own place now. But up until March this year, thank you. I was unhoused, and right now, and like I said, I believe in guerrilla advocacy. That's what I believe in right now, because we got the FIFA coming next year, and I'm not sure if a lot of people just, honing down on this unhoused thing because of that. I question Atlanta because we got the downtown rise and a whole bunch of other jibber jabber over there. But and I think one of my biggest issues has been, as a female, being out in the streets. Women's shelters are few and far between. We have maybe 100 beds for men. You might have 5 or 10 beds in there for women, and that's almost every city I've been in. I've done a lot of work in Seattle, South Carolina. It's like everywhere I go, it's the same, and it's also the same with women, with children. I don't even want to touch on our elder women who's disabled. I've been working with some elder women right up in Kirkwood, actually, in a wheelchair, and no shelter's going to take you if you're in a wheelchair, if you have a cane, because you're a liability, no matter how old you are. So to work with somebody and at the last minute you got to say, well, I'm sorry, I got to leave you out here in the streets for the rest of the night. It's cold or whatever. You sit in this wheelchair, you're using the bathroom on yourself. I'm not sure how Decatur handled that, because right now Atlanta's not doing anything, and it's kind of bothering my soul. So that's one of the questions, how you all addressing that, or if y'all have a problem with the women's shelters out here in Decatur. Excuse me. And also, on are you all concerned about the FIFA coming? Is that affecting Decatur in any kind of way? Because we find a lot of our unhoused people not feeling safe in Atlanta, so they kind of drifting out into the surrounding counties. So we probably having some push out here in Decatur. I know we got people going to DeKalb County, you know. So I'm not sure. You know, I really want to commend you, sir. I think, Mr. White, you having people, because I'd be concerned about people being in the room. There's a lot of conversation without representation. I got a problem with that. You know, we're not in a room with conversation being had because everybody seems to know what the unhoused need better than they do. You know, and I know we touch on we need shelter, but there are things they need to bring dignity back. They do want showers. Cause I know when I was out there, having a shower is one of the biggest things, and I got hit with, well, you look like you need help, or you know, those type of things. You know, so just wondering how y'all addressing those kind of issues. Or, you know, I love being in the trenches, and I know everybody else is so data-driven, and while I know that's important, I'm more on the human side because I just believe in this is hard work, not hard work, you know, so that's just one of my big things. So how y'all addressing those type of issues out here in Decatur?
Yeah, go ahead, please.
I would say this, for me, everybody welcome. To me, you know, as you hear cities saying we don't want people to come, Commission just told you I'm in Atlanta one day, I'm in Gwinnett, I'm in Rockdale, so people cross lines. So that conversation has come up a lot of times. Commissioner Walsh and I talk about it, but I could tell people when people come for showers out of Atlanta, they welcome in Decatur. I find out people take the showers and they go back, but one of the things I would just say the ecosystem is, I think the word has gotten out, treat people like they're human beings. That's what we try to do. And Decatur, people call a lot of times and say, Greg, Commissioner might be running, I see somebody on a certain spot, I'll tell Princess, will you see you seeing new people? And they say yes. And then one way for us to connect people, we connect people like we all do. When you think about your Thanksgiving Day with your family and people come together, you connect. And we do a little piece called Chili in Decatur every other Thursday. We get the chili from, Nikki's not here. She's one of our volunteers in Decatur. We get the chili from Super Jennings. Super Jennings found out about people don't need to eat out of a trash can. We get the chili. Princess and Tenny, they serve. And how many people did y'all have this past Thursday? I wasn't there. Probably like 30, 35. 30, 35. We see new faces. Imagine you getting food, basics. Yeah, basic needs, and all of a sudden you meet a community of friends. And one of the things we got to realize with Unhoused, it's a community of people out there. I was with Will with an encampment off of Candler Road, and the people Mount Will had vans and U-Haul trucks, and all the people, they moving 50 people. And then when I got out there, I was like, wow. Then I said, wow. Then I went back and saw all the dogs. So then I started moving, putting all the dogs. So I put all the dogs in my car. I think we had about 4 or 5 dogs. We had about 4 or 5 dogs in the car. And people don't think about, people in the house have dogs, and their dogs mean as much as your dog mean to you. And my goal was to keep the dog and the owner together. So those are just letting you know, that's my approach. I may be a little different from a lot of people because I know what people are dealing with. I may sit as an ED at Home for Everyone. I'm thankful for the opportunity for our organization, but we're out there we small, we trying to be creative. We're about partnering with DeKalb. We'll partner with anybody that's ready to do the work to make the difference for people. It's not about Greg White. I retired, just that you know, I retired as a Parks and Rec director for 30 years. Part of my retirement was to get in this area, because I know all the system gaps and all the systems not working. So for me, it's to be a partner with St. Vincent, DeKalb, Claritel, consultants, you as an individual. I don't know all the answers. I'm just here to make a difference.
On behalf of the plan, I wanted to answer that 2 of the recommendations that are being formed are with the lived experience voice, a big part of it. So that's one of the shelter advisory and oversight. And again, I went really fast, but one of the big things it'll be, we don't know how we're doing as a community unless we ask the individuals that we're serving. So that'll be a big part of that. And then any other kind of collaboration oversight on that served. We are actually, we met with several different groups when we started this off, and we're going to go back to those groups and say, hey, you guys, this is what we're forming. These are the details that we want to have a part of it. What do you think? Would this actually begin to start serving the individual and unique needs of what we heard, 5 months ago. So 2 things, but for sure the lived experience is coming up. And then the other thing I wanted to mention regarding outreach, and again, I know it's awesome because there's other organizations in the county that are also trying to put effort and money behind case management and outreach. So our collaborative groups are also surfacing up what do we think the community needs from a street outreach, housing navigation, and case management, and we're doing a job of defining those. So we understand there's differences and expectations, but it is absolutely at the street outreach level transitioning into that, but people need to walk the path. I'm not on the street, I'm in an extended stay, but I still need case management. So trying to meet individuals, who they are and where they are, will be part of that recommendation.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Yvette Hudson, and I am the founder and CEO of Community Connect Service. I'm also a commissioner that sits on the board of the Housing Authority of DeKalb County, and it's an honor to stand here with you all today in recognition of World Homelessness Day. Today we gather to uplift the voices of those who are unhoused and housing insecure in our county. We gather to share solutions, strengthen partnerships, and recommit to the work of building systems and trauma-informed, equitable, and being responsive. I asked Harold Blake from Housing Authority to read the impact statement from housing, specifically the homeless demonstration program that was put on pause recently. And as I'm sitting here, I didn't know what to expect today, so I wrote me a statement out. But I think that coming together and advocating for this to be uplifted, and you guys understand why after his impact statement, how it was beneficial to helping people, the homeless people of DeKalb County. Harold?
Thank you, Commissioner, and it's an honor to be here with you all today and working with many of you, working with Carol on the funding group, and Greg and Andrea and Mr. Terry, and Dr. Ferguson is going to be speaking at a veterans program where we're trying to help homelessness from a veterans perspective in November. One of our programs, as Commissioner Hudson cited, is the homeless demonstration program. And with this, we partner with organizations in DeKalb County to try to do connections and not work just in a vacuum. So someone mentioned earlier, we're downstream. We're the housing part, the permanent housing part. But we realize we have to be intentional about meeting new organizations like you guys and sharing how can we help each other help those in need. Because one of the things that has come out of the funding group that we've worked on so far is people are depending on us, like this young lady who talked about, I work from the heart, H-E-A-R-T, doing the hard work. They're looking for us to get the results right. And with our Phoenix Station property, Commissioner Terry and others got involved. And I know these nice people from DeKalb County government are involved. There are a lot of us behind the scenes who are trying to understand how we can help get it right. So this homeless demonstration program is facing a pause with the environment that we're in right now. But we had, before the change that we're experiencing now from a national to a local level, 165 housing choice vouchers that positively impacted affordable housing outcomes and got people into permanent housing solutions, helping their dignity and finding stability, like through our Phoenix Station property. And of these 92 families that secured housing, we actively are working with the other 73 who are searching for safe, affordable, quality housing. Because of the pause, we've got 114 vouchers that we can't do anything with right now, and isn't that a shame? We've got people homeless who have a need. We've got help on this side, but right now we can't do anything with this pause. So working together, what can we do then to support organizations like yours to help with the hard work that Mr. Butler and others are doing out here to make a difference is what we're trying to do. And I commend the commissioners getting Carol and her team in place, because this is important work that, again, the people in need are looking for us to get this right. For people like myself who've come out of a for-profit environment to a nonprofit, we are trying to figure out how can we lend our skills and our relationships to assist. And working with this homeless demonstration program, that's one example. Many of you know that public housing authorities have a long waiting list. We have been actively working ours at the housing authority. When we opened up our waiting list recently, the Housing Choice Voucher Program, it was about 2 years ago, we were closed down within a couple of hours with 60,000 applicants. We've worked that list down to 21,000 now, and we continue. All of us need more resources, but all of us need to not work in silos either. You know, we have to work together. And I admire, again, what all of you are doing. Us being here shows our care, our heart, as that young lady spoke to. We do want to make a difference. And the community impact on homelessness with this current pause, as we all know, is having a tangible effect, but we don't stop. And our homeless demonstration program is one of the examples from the Housing Authority of DeKalb County that shows we're not stopping and we're being intentional about how can we work with you to help make a difference where we have to step back, but maybe help you move forward. Lastly, we're 70 years old, and we have been sustainable in helping people get affordable housing and even cycle out, because we know, again, that housing isn't the only option that people need, from financial literacy to other opportunities for employment to other services to help them be fully functional around their motivation, and help them through mixed use housing understand how they can fulfill what is important to them. So this homeless demonstration program aims to do just that, and we thank people like Commissioner Hudson for being one of our leaders who help that happen every day, along with you commissioners and all you leaders here today. Thank you, Mr. Damon. Thank you, young lady. A pleasure to be with you on this funding group work group. Carol, keep pushing us. We need you. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Carol. Nice to meet you as well. And I am happy to be with the Client Experience Work Group, and this is going to be great. I just want to also just let you all know Community Connect Services has been working deeply with Housing Authority on the homeless demonstration program. And I just want you all to imagine a small 501c organization, our impact so far with that program. We've referred 164 individuals and families to the program. 80 of those applicants have successfully leased units. 23 are in the final stages of that process. 14 are actively searching for housing. 34 was deemed ineligible, often due to documentation barriers. 13 vouchers have expired, and 0 applicants are pending. So imagine our organization is that small, how beneficial is this homeless demonstration program for other partners as well? And I cannot stress enough, those numbers reflect both progress and pain. While 80 households now have a roof over their head, 50 or more are still waiting, caught in the system that's currently paused. They stopped referrals and just cut it out. And I just asked everyone to join with me in asking our leaders, partnerships, whatever it takes, to call to action to start that back immediately. Thank you.
At this time, I would like to recognize a couple of people. We have Commissioner Shakira Johnson, District 4. Thank you for coming. We have Director Damon Scott, DeKalb County Human Resource. Human Services. And then also Commissioner Hudson, thank you for coming as well.
I had a question with reference to everything, and I thank you so much for the presentation. This was wonderful, and I'm glad to have been a part of it. As I sit here and I heard the 501c3 big picture, I guess you could say, vision. So my question is, and I have about two. The first question I have is, where is it that you're bringing in landlords who have property that may also want to be a part of the program and help out, but they're not 501c3, so they would be considered more or less small businesses? And I say this as someone who's representing those landlords who there are about 10 to 15 homes right now that are sitting vacant, and we're talking about people on the streets. And so the idea is, how do we make that connection to people who have homes, they are sitting vacant, they're ready to be housed, and there's some pushback in this in terms of what's considered, I guess you could say, regulation. However, if you're building a home, it doesn't require sprinklers. So why is that becoming a requirement for someone who's unhoused to live in it? So there's some things that we've got to look at to align that when we're talking about helping someone who's in need, and the idea of maybe a shelter may not be the ideal situation, but if I'm able to provide actually a 3-bedroom home for a family, then why is that not something more, a better way to consider, hey, let's get them in that home for the evening, and then we'll work out some details later. And my other part to that question is also, I know we're doing a lot of help for rental. I don't see us doing as much help for landlords. So, well, not landlords, I'll say homeowners. So I want to look at that as a part of, maybe we're talking about big picture, keeping people off the streets, because if you're talking about someone who's owned a home, in the climate we're in, we're losing jobs. So if I'm here today in a home, tomorrow I may not be. And so now I've just become a part of that number that we're looking at trying to house. So I just ask that we look at things and maybe look at it from, yes, housing first. To me, foundation is simple. You got to have somewhere to be, lay your head at night, and you got to feel safe in it. The second part to that is, you mentioned skills. People got to work. We need to work. And everything that goes to volunteer, 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 I still can't go to Georgia Power and say, hey, I volunteered 20 hours this week. Can y'all please turn my power on? They didn't accept it. I know. They turned me off. So I say that with the idea of, let's talk about this, not just from top level vision. It sounds good. Yes, a campus is fantastic, but we also have smaller pods of this that need help and some assistance, and I think it could be a collaborative effort of everything that you've mentioned here and help solve a lot of the problem on a bigger scale where we are collaborating. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to take one more question, and then
I'm sorry, I think I was going to respond to your notion. So thank you, and thank you for sharing that. And actually, in your comments, what you've really said for me is something that I firmly believed in, and that there's not a single silver bullet type of solution to really address all of these particular challenges, and that is going to take multiple pathways, multiple solutions involving a variety of different partners in order to come to the table to be a part of addressing all the issues long term. And so I especially like that you brought up this notion of, how do we get all of the other elements that add to a quality of life and stability and certainty for our residents. How do we bring them to the table as well? So when we talk about building coalitions, I really look at it as building larger and expanding circles and relationships, finding those interested, invested partners to come in to help work together to provide those solutions. And I absolutely consider landlords and property owners as a part of the solution. I think those that want to willingly participate we need to make room for them. And those who are reluctant to participate, we need to demonstrate to them and provide the incentive that not only is this, a good business decision, but also it's good as a community citizen, if you will, as a corporate citizen, regardless of the size of your business, to be involved and engaged, in these activities. I also firmly believe that it's not just a housing, solution, and that when we look at things, we need to look at them comprehensively and also coordinate around what are we doing in the education space, what are we doing in the healthcare space and access to healthcare and services, what are we doing in the workforce development and skill, base? Are we making sure that we're making ample opportunities for, our residents, for people, to get access to those higher wage earning skills and long-term job certainty, skills and professions, so that they can maintain their employment, throughout various cycles. And in addition, to all of that, you also mentioned, this notion of, seniors and long-term legacy residents being able to maintain their homes, being able to preserve someone in a stable housing environment that they can afford, whether they rent or own, is absolutely key to addressing the long-term issues around affordability and housing across, the county. So I can tell you all of those things that you mentioned are kind of top of mind when we talk about, what are the long-term solutions for, DeKalb County. I've got a whole sheet here, full of, the 5 different pillars that we're focused on. But everything that you mentioned is top of line for us. But I'll also say this as well, because it was mentioned kind of earlier on in the conversation around, how San Antonio and Houston, they started these conversations, 10, 15 years ago, trying to build, coalitions. And I think building coalitions, building this broader table is absolutely great, and it's, the right thing to do. But in the meantime, we also have the examples, that this delegation went to Texas and actually saw of successful models that have been implemented. And so I would just say, while we're, expiring for the greater good, let's not let great near-term ideas and solutions sit on the shelf while we're building this broader, expansive coalition. Okay? And so we can continue to do the work around relationship building, coalition building, bringing all of these different partners and stakeholders, to the table. But we also know that there are some near-term solutions and near-term activities that we need. It was brought up here today around increased resources and availability, for street outreach and, person-to-person engagement. If we know that's a need right now, let's start to try to figure out and solutionize around, how do we solve for that right now? In the meanwhile, we're building these broader coalitions to advance kind of bigger, bolder, even more regional type of solutions across. And so I like to, say that's the type of activity we really like to support here in the county.
So we're going to take one more question, but we have note cards that will be passed out where you can write your question, your name, your email address, and someone will respond to your question. I just also would like to recognize Commissioner Washington from Stonecrest. Thank you for coming.
Okay, so all right, Deborah Furtado, and I guess, so with Human Services, working with Damon, our director, I have 2 questions for y'all. And first of all, I want to thank everyone because it's just inspiring. And Greg, you always inspire me. And Harold, Deborah, you forgot my name. I can't believe it. But that's all right. You always are very passionate on our calls, as Carol knows, and I just love it. So, and my Commissioner Kelly Walsh with Decatur just inspires me. And Ted, of course. My question is really kind of, Ted, for you too. So we're doing violence prevention. We have a program, we have a grant from the feds, and we've been working on this going into our 4th year. And there's a model that we use. And Carol, I forgot to even tell you about this model, but I think for what we're talking about, it was Greg that got me, is that I turned to Damon, you said there's a pandemic. So violence prevention, the model is treating violence as a disease. And we've been doing this now for like 30 years, and it's starting to really work. And we're now doing it now in DeKalb. When the grant, we had 4 phases, and one is analyzing the data to find out where are the hot spots? Where are the violent crime hot spots in DeKalb? We did that. Community assessment. We partnered with Grady on a hospital violence intervention program, and now we're doing asset mapping. And I'm just thinking that I know there's a lot been done in Texas, but that's kind of what you're going at here. And I just think it's a good model to treating this homelessness, unhoused, like a disease, like we do when we look at any pandemic. So one is to ask, just something to think about, and I'm happy to give you all the information we have on it. The second question is really kind of for our commissioner, is that this is a regional problem. Because I know, I work at the warming centers, Greg knows, people come from everywhere. Damon knows, we always talk about, people aren't DeKalb homeless folks or Cobb or Fulton or Gwinnett. They're coming from all over. So why isn't the ARC doing more? Maybe they are on this. I think it needs to be regional. We could get more money that way, I think, from the feds whenever the government opens back up. But we could, and it just seems to make sense that if we could do that and be more regional in our approach, because we do have an Atlanta Regional Commission that I think could really focus on this. And right now I know it's an immediate issue, but maybe that long term, I don't know if it's something, Commissioner, that they're working on.
Thank you, Deborah, for the question. And yes, thank you for what you're doing around violence prevention. And I think highlighting just the fact that there's science, there's expertise, and things are always evolving. And one of the things we have to do as policymakers, leaders, service providers is we have to stay up to date with what's going on. And how do you do that? You read, you do research, and you talk to each other, right? So I think the fundamental aspect of what I'm hearing from you is if we're not all talking to each other, if we're not trying to collaborate, then we're really going to miss a lot of things, and we're certainly going to be less efficient, and that just means we're going to have less ability and capacity to help folks, whether it's help them or help them up. I think we could talk all day long about regionalism and why there's so many things we have to work on when it comes to regionalism. I do want to give just a shout out to Madam CEO Lorraine Cochran-Johnson for having the vision to bring Dr. Ferguson on board as the county's first chief housing officer, because Atlanta had a chief housing officer. Is that where you were first? Yeah. So he came from Atlanta, took him away. But they just announced the new chief housing officers. Now Atlanta and DeKalb have chief housing officers. Maybe other jurisdictions have chief housing officers. I'm not sure. Do they?
A couple of others.
Couple others. So, but 3-5 years ago, no one was talking about having a chief housing officer, right? So, but this to me just is showcasing the fact that these are very complicated issues and they require expertise. You could spend all day long talking about just housing, and we're talking about homelessness today. But yes, housing and homelessness are connected, not exactly, but they overlap in so many ways. So I just want to appreciate that as a commissioner, and I know as Madam CEO, like every time we open up our inboxes, every morning, we get all the problems of society show up on our phones or in our voicemails. I mean, everything that's a problem in America is a county problem or a city problem, right? Councilmember Weaver or Washington. And we're trying to solve them in the short term, but also create policy and funding measures that hopefully address them in the long term. So I appreciate everything that Human Services does. Y'all sent Ms. Ann Pope to the delegation, so Human Services was represented on the delegation trip. We have Community Development, Human Services, Chief Housing Officer. I'm really excited that with new leadership, with new commissioners, Commissioner Johnson, is on board. We are really trying to tackle these issues holistically. We're not looking at homelessness as one thing. We're looking at it in a broad spectrum. So with Dr. Ferguson, with what the team is doing with the Unhoused plan, this is really helping us have the knowledge and hopefully the plan, the action plan moving forward. And that's what I'm concerned. I'm focused on, let's get things done. And it's great that we have the 2-year plan, thinking 4-year, 5-year, 10-year, right? But let's get some stuff done now and just keep this thing moving.
And if I can, just kind of, piggyback on that, I am very much so in favor of, lifting this up and bringing it to a regional level, because I definitely believe that is a regional issue, and we should be all working in, cooperation and collaboration together around some commonly themed strategies. Methods may differ from place to place, but trying to achieve an ultimate solution. But I think one of the ways that we can get to a point where we're looking at this as a regional issue is by establishing good practices here at home in DeKalb County. And so here in DeKalb County, we have 13 operating municipalities, including the city of Atlanta. And, I'm glad to say that the new chief housing officer for the city of Atlanta, I consider a good, friend and colleague, and we go back 15 years. And so rest assured that there's going to be some outreach, with the city of Atlanta, as well as all of the other operating municipalities here within the county, to try to bring us together, and have this table here in the county model what we want to see at a regional level in regards to communication, cooperation, and collaboration around having joint solutions, towards the challenges, of the unhoused. But I think one of the best ways we can invite people to that larger regional table is by modeling that behavior right here in DeKalb County.
And before we close, I want to recognize one more person. We have Chief of Staff LaShawn Atwaters here, representing District 3, Commissioner Messiah.
So, thank you so much. On behalf of the 50-plus individuals that are participating in developing our Unhoused plan, which again is a drop in the bucket of all the work that's happening already and that needs to happen, but it's still actionable and from the ground up, we want to encourage you to take that survey that you have, and we can put the QR code back up there. On that survey, there's a comments area. If there is a message for anybody here, along with the comment boxes, or something that we didn't cover in the Unhoused plan that you hope shows up on the what you want written into that sustainability plan, any of those comments, we will read all of them and disperse as necessary or as possible. And then again, any other questions specifically, you can hand right here. So thank you all. Thanks so much for everybody for participating.
Thanks again, everyone, for coming. We'll hang around a few minutes extra if there's any questions, but appreciate your participation today. Have a good rest of your Saturday.